I'm glad that we agree that these heinous acts designed to instill fear and division in our nation are never, ever acceptable, yet each of these incidents has recently taken place under your watch. The FBI's website states that protecting the United States from terrorist acts is the FBI's #1 priority, including from domestic terrorists. Is this still your #1 priority?
Domestic terrorism?
Preventing domestic terrorism.
Our #1 priorities are protecting the homeland and international terrorism and crushing violent crime, and domestic terrorism sort of interlays between both of those.
When Congresswoman Lucy McBath took the floor, she did something that many Americans have been waiting to hear: a direct confrontation over accountability within one of the nation's most powerful institutions, the FBI. Her line of questioning toward Kash Patel wasn't just about statistics or policies. It was about trust, integrity, and the direction of justice in America under partisan influence.
Thank you for coming in today, Mr. Patel. In the past few months, the country has experienced a string of horrific, high-profile attacks that have been motivated by racial hatred or political ideology. A shooter attacked the CDC headquarters, firing hundreds of rounds and killing a police officer. An arsonist set fire to the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro's residence, with the governor and his family actually inside. Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were assassinated earlier this year. Clark and Charlie Kirk was murdered last week. Bomb threats have been made against HBCUs and the DNC, and just the list goes on and on. I only have just a few minutes today, so I don't want to take a lot of time to go into all the countless and devastating violent crimes and incidents that have happened at our schools or on our streets and in our communities that have just been happening all year long. Mr. Patel, just yes or no, is this type of political violence ever acceptable in your eyes?
No.
I'm glad that we agree that these heinous acts designed to instill fear and division in our nation are never, ever acceptable. Yet each of these incidents has recently taken place under your watch. The FBI's website states that protecting the United States from terrorist acts is the FBI's #1 priority, including from domestic terrorists. Is this still your #1 priority?
Domestic terrorism?
Preventing domestic terrorism.
Our #1 priorities are protecting the homeland and international terrorism and crushing violent crime, and domestic terrorism sort of interlays between both of those.
Okay, so well, then I'm glad that you're giving us the right answer, but unfortunately, your actions kind of tell a different story. Earlier this year, you granted the ranks of the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Section. This is the section of the FBI that is most directly responsible for addressing political violence in our country by preventing attacks from occurring and effectively responding to them if they do. The agents in this section are the ones who stopped an individual stockpiling weapons, who planned to attack schools and churches in Florida and seized bombs made by an ISIS sympathizer in New Orleans. And instead of ensuring that this section has all the resources that it needs at a time when its mission is critical, you fired its decorated veteran FBI agents who have served their country proudly under Republican and both Democratic presidents, and you scrapped the tools that they developed to fight domestic terrorism, including the National Domestic Terrorism Incident Database.
I mean, most of that is just not true. We have 1,700 current DT managed programs. We're up 300% in the amount of cases we brought against nihilistic, violent extremists, including 764, wishing to harm our children. The FBI and the men and women are getting after that problem set more than ever because I've unleashed them to do so. And any insinuation that these tragic occurrences across the country are somehow singularly my fault or disgusting because that watershed goes down to the men and women at the FBI, and they are not responsible for it. I'm happy to work with you to get them what they need.
Gentle lady controls the time. Unanimous consent request. You'll state a request.
Thank you very much. Into the record, an article from Reuters titled FBI Scales Back Staffing, Tracking of Domestic Terrorism, Probe Sources Say. Thank you very much.
Without objection.
I appreciate that. So, Mr. Patel, and it isn't just the Domestic Terrorism Operations Section. Under your watch, agents are fully diverting their attention to these anti-immigrant and city takeover operations, leaving our children vulnerable to dangerous networks of online predators, both domestic and international. You pulled more than 120 FBI agents from their normal duties to operate sobriety checks and conduct traffic stops, exposing the FBI's fleet of unmarked cars and thereby making it harder for the FBI to combat violent criminal gangs, foreign intelligence services, and drug traffickers in the process.
That's simply not true. If we were not able to do two things at one time, how would we be
Patel, I
seizing
reclaim
record
my
amounts of
time. I
fentanyl?
reclaim my time.
23,000
Chairman, I'd like to
violent
enter
felons have been
into the
arrested.
Time belongs to the
consent
More
gentlelady.
than twice as many as
request.
last
Belongs to
year.
the gentlelady from Georgia.
Thank you very much. And this request basically is, it is an article from Reuters, which quotes law enforcement officers familiar with agents who once covered child exploitation cases, but now focus on immigration child exclusive. Thousands of agents diverted to Trump immigration track down. Mr. Patel, in the short time I have left, your tenure as director of FBI has been somewhat problematic. Americans are definitely less safe under your watch. You have gutted the FBI's ability to keep safe from domestic terrorism. You have sent FBI agents to conduct traffic stops and round up hardworking immigrants who pose no danger to public safety. People even President Trump referred to as good, long-time workers. Your job is to protect and serve the American public.
Time to the
You have
gentlelady.
spent your time protecting heinous individuals and using the FBI to serve as a political circus. You at times have appeared unequipped.
Time to
This
the
country
gentlelady has
deserves better, and
expired.
I yield.
Gentlelady yields
May I
back.
respond?
Sure can.
Simply put, what is it? Are we failing? If we're failing, how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? Twice as many as this time last year. Are we failing? Because if we're failing, how are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth, 25% increase from last year? Are we failing? Because we captured 4 top 10 FBI most wanted from around the world in 7 months. That's more than the entirety of the last administration. Are we failing? Because we put 1,500 child predators in prison. Are we failing? Because we dismantled 300 human trafficking networks. Which is it? You don't like me, that's fine. But don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI that are producing record results in historic fashion to protect this country. They are kicking ass for America, and they're going to continue to do so.
What we witnessed between Lucy McBath and Kash Patel was not just another heated Washington exchange, it was a window into the larger question of what kind of justice system Americans want and deserve. Representative McBath came into that hearing carrying the weight of real-world violence that her constituents and the country have been living with. She listed shootings, bomb threats, political assassinations, not to sensationalize them, but to remind everyone that these tragedies are not abstract policy debates. They are lived realities for families who are terrified every time they send a child to school or walk into a place of worship. Her opening question, whether political violence is ever acceptable, was rhetorical, but it framed the issue clearly. The FBI, under any director, must be laser-focused on preventing hate-fueled violence and protecting communities. When she accused Kash Patel's tenure of being problematic, she was not just leveling a partisan attack. She was describing a pattern that Democrats and many moderates have grown increasingly concerned about: the gradual redirection of federal law enforcement away from neutral protection of the public and toward politically charged missions. McBath highlighted that agents were being pulled from units focused on domestic terrorism and child exploitation to work on immigration enforcement and low-level street operations. If that is true, it reveals a deeper institutional problem: leadership making decisions that please political masters rather than serve the agency's core mission of safety and justice. Patel's response was to defend himself with statistics, arrest numbers, drug seizures, child protection cases, but the tension in his tone gave away what those numbers could not cover. McBath was questioning not the quantity of activity, but the quality of leadership. Are the FBI's resources being aimed at the threats that actually endanger Americans? Are agents being empowered to investigate domestic extremists, white supremacist groups, and politically motivated violence without interference? These are questions of priorities and values, not just productivity. This exchange also reveals something larger about the current political landscape. The Democratic perspective, embodied by McBath, insists that safety and justice are inseparable. A nation cannot be truly safe if its law enforcement agencies are politicized. It cannot be secure if domestic terrorism is downplayed because it doesn't fit an administration's narrative. Her insistence on accountability is part of a broader push to restore the independence of the Justice Department and to ensure that the FBI serves all citizens equally, not selectively. Patel's outburst, "Don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI," was emotionally charged and, in one sense, understandable. Rank-and-file agents do put themselves in danger every every day. But McBath wasn't attacking those agents. She was challenging the leadership that may have compromised their mission. That distinction matters. A truly strong leader accepts scrutiny, acknowledges missteps, and corrects course. What viewers saw instead was defensiveness, an unwillingness to accept that criticism can coexist with respect for the institution. For the viewer, this hearing is more than political theater. It is a civics lesson in real time about oversight and power. The Constitution gives Congress the duty to hold executive agencies accountable. Without that oversight, bureaucratic power becomes unmoored from public interest. McBath's persistence, her insistence on asking uncomfortable questions, is part of what keeps that balance alive. And there's another layer, how we, as citizens, interpret what happened. Do we settle for sound bites, or do we engage deeply enough to see the implications of how federal law enforcement is directed? This isn't just about Patel or McBath. It's about whether Americans are comfortable with an FBI that might prioritize politics over public safety. It's about whether we believe accountability strengthens institutions rather than weakens them. Moments like this remind us why civic participation matters. They show that democracy is not self-sustaining. It requires informed citizens who pay attention, ask questions, and demand that government serve the people with transparency and fairness. If we look beyond the shouting and the statistics, we can see the essential point McBath was making. Justice without accountability is just power, and power without integrity eventually erodes public trust. So take this hearing as a call to awareness, read beyond the headlines, understand the stakes, and remember that every time an elected official like Lucy McBath insists on oversight, she is defending not just a policy position, but the principle that no one, no director, no administration is above accountability.